It is so hard being a Hazbin Hotel fan. I honestly can't believe that the pilot for Hazbin Hotel aired 4 years ago. I genuinely remember watching the pilot back in 2019 and seeing so much potential in this series. The animation was stunning and some of the best work that I've ever seen from an independent project. The character designs were fun and unique, and I thought the plot was pretty interesting enough to set it apart from other animated shows. And it's obvious that I wasn't the only one who felt this way because this pilot exploded on the internet. So you could just imagine how excited most people were when they found out that the series was picked up by A24 and was set to premiere on Amazon Prime. And over the last 4 years, I can only remember a couple shows that actually matched the anticipation hype that Hazbin Hotel had. Because man, this show is massively popular online. And as you could guess, being popular to the degree that this series was before even releasing a full season did a lot of good for it, but also left this series up to a lot of scrutiny online. And I do mean a lot of scrutiny. But now that the show is actually out and airing and season 1's almost over with, I wanted to give my thoughts about the show to see if it actually lived up to the hype or if the criticisms were right all along. But before I get into the critiques, the criticisms, my first impressions and thoughts, I just wanted to give a shout out to the creator, the cast, and everybody involved in making this project actually happen. If you've been on this channel long enough, you know I've constantly said that it feels like we're going through an animation renaissance, specifically in the West, because for a long time it felt like Western animation outside of kid shows wasn't taken serious as an art form. And it's only now over the last 4 years that we're really seeing Western studios take risks and try to elevate Western animation to new heights, as well as use the art of animation for more complex and mature stories. Into the Spider-Verse, Invincible, Blue-Eyed Samurai, and now Hazbin Hotel. Because the fact that an independent project put out on YouTube can lead to a fully greenlit series on Amazon Prime just opens up the door to creative possibilities and opportunities that are in the future for animation. So good job, VisiPop. You did your thing. But anyway, now that that's over with, Hazbin Hotel has been airing for a little over a week now, and as of the time of this recording, there are 6 episodes out. And ever since episode 2, one of the biggest complaints I heard about this show is that the writing and pacing is terrible. And I just couldn't believe these criticisms when I heard them, so when I finally got a chance to sit down and watch the show, I just had to check it out to see if it was true. And well, they were kinda right, but also kinda wrong. I really didn't realize how bad the pacing was for episode 1 because I watched the pilot before I hopped into the series to refresh my memory. And it was only after the fact when somebody told me the pilot isn't really canon anymore that it made me realize, man, this first episode is starting off guns blazing. If your first introduction to this series is episode 1 and you've never seen the pilot, you're getting hit with so much information at once. This episode covers the history of hell and the exterminations, what the point of the hotel is. It introduces you to all the characters in the hotel, a musical number, Charlie meeting with Adam, another musical number, and the big plot twist at the end. So much stuff happened in this episode, and a lot of episodes so far where they're trying to world build and execute important events feel like they don't have enough time to build up, and they're not allowed to have these ideas be as powerful as they're supposed to be. For example, in the most recent episode, episode 6, there were 3 different plot points going on that could have been their own standalone episodes. We could have gotten an entire episode of Charlie spending time in heaven becoming friends with Emily. It would have been very interesting to see the two interact more. As we saw in the beginning of the episode, the two had very similar personalities, and by giving this dynamic more time to develop, it would have made their duet in You Don't Know much more powerful. We also could have got an entire episode devoted towards Vaggie's backstory. Her being an angel exiled from heaven is one of the most important and shocking plot points of the season, and it would have been really cool to see them flesh out her backstory and show her first interactions with Charlie over a whole episode rather than a 2-minute flashback. And also, the trial could have been an entire episode on its own. It would have been really nice to see more dialogue between not only Charlie and the Seraphins, but also Charlie and the rest of the angels. Seeing the angels scramble over one another about what actually constitutes a soul getting into heaven could have been expanded on even more. And we could have got more examples of not only Angel Dust showing improvement as a person, but also Sir Pinches, who I feel has also grown as well. But instead of taking these very strong plot points and fleshing them out thoroughly throughout their own episodes, all 3 were condensed down to about a third of the episode. And this is just kind of how the pacing's been throughout season 1. Now, is it every episode? No, but out of 6 episodes, I would say it's been a good 3. But in defense of the show, what I will say is I don't think this is a writing issue because the material's there. You see what they're trying to do. But I think this is more of an issue of Amazon Prime only greenlighting them for about 8 episodes for season 1, which is really weird because when the trailer first dropped announcing that the show was going to air on Amazon Prime, it also announced that a season 2 was on the way. So the only thing that I could see is that they did season 1 without realizing just how big of a following the show had and then greenlit a season 2, which isn't impossible to believe because an article came out revealing that a bunch of the voice actors didn't even know how big this show was online. So hopefully season 2 fixes the pacing issue by giving them enough episodes to really work with. But going back to the second criticism of Hazbin Hotel having terrible writing, I just completely disagree with this narrative. Now, will I say there's certain aspects of the writing that won't appeal to certain groups of people? Of course. There's a lot of jokes and comedic tones that I don't think will hit with every audience. But comedy is also subjective, and you wouldn't say something like South Park has trash writing because you don't like some of the jokes in the show. And I think when you take a step back away from the show's comedy, you actually see that there's a lot of interesting plot points that they're setting up and really good writing to follow. For one, let's take a look at one of the most interesting characters in the entire series, Alistair. Alistair is the radio demon that's been missing in hell for 7 years and comes back coincidentally around the same time Charlie starts up the Happy Hotel. He then signs up to help her run the hotel, and in the beginning of the story we know little to nothing about Alistair. All we know is that he's the fastest rising and one of the most powerful overlords in hell. But rather than diving deeper into his backstory, the show does a good job of intentionally keeping him a mystery, and it's only through little hints here and there that we learn a tiny bit of information about his character. And it's because of the way that his character is written that the viewer becomes very interested every time he's on the screen. You're constantly in a pursuit of trying to figure out more information about him, you're constantly trying to figure out what's his motive, and also you're trying to figure out how does his interactions with characters as well as how they speak about him reveal more about his past. And it's this sense of intriguement, this sense of mystery that the writers have built around this character, easily making him one of the best in the series so far. But then we could also segue to another character who's telling a great story in Angel Dust, because if you didn't know already, the point of the hotel is to take crooked souls and try to reform them in order for them to be accepted into heaven. And in not only the first episode but especially the pilot, Angel Dust is a model example of a crooked soul in hell. This is actually something I liked more in the pilot than in the actual series, because when we're first introduced to Angel Dust in the pilot, we see the character commit almost every sin possible that you can think of, and the show really enforces that this character is a textbook definition of a lost soul. But from episode 3 to episode 6, we see a lot of growth from this character. When first brought into the hotel, it's clear that Angel Dust is only staying there for a free room and free food, and that there's no interest in actually trying to redeem their soul. And not only do we see this character reject the idea of redemption multiple times in the beginning, but we also see them relapse off any progress that they've made at the hotel over and over again. And at face value, it makes it seem like the mission of the hotel is pointless. And Angel is used as a representation of the average soul in hell. And if the average soul refuses to work on seeking redemption, then what's the point of even trying? But the deeper we dive into Angel as a character, we found out that he sold his soul to an overlord. And through selling his soul, he's forced to commit countless sinful acts that he doesn't want to do. And feeling hopeless that nothing will ever change, he turns to a sinful life in order to numb himself from his reality. Fast forward to episode 6 and we see that Angel is still in the same contract that he was in before. And he's in an environment where he's being tempted by all the same vices that he used to run to numb himself. But through interactions with the rest of the main cast as well as lessons learned at the hotel, we see him show more of a conscience now. He weighs the good and bad out of his decisions and tries to make better choices that would actually help him achieve redemption. But not only does he stop himself from falling victim to these vices, he also stops his friends. And it's through the writing of Angel that we see that many of these souls aren't irredeemable or don't want to be redeemed, but many of them are just in hopeless spots and only need someone to push them to actually reflect on themselves and take the steps needed to seek redemption. And Hazbin Hotel does a great job of writing these characters that toe the line morally between good and bad, showing just like in real life that most of the time people aren't just black and white, they're normally in a gray area. And there's so many things writing wise that I feel like this show does pretty well. It does such a great job of setting up characters like Alistair and Angel, but also setting up characters that we've never seen, dropping dialogue here and there that hints to a character's history, as well as mysteries that could be uncovered in later seasons. And like I said before, I feel like the only problem with Hazbin Hotel so far has been the pacing, because all the plot points and ideas that I've been talking about are in the story, but the way they're executed a lot of times, not having the big payoff that they're intended for, leads a lot of people to say that this show has bad writing. And in any other circumstance, I'd probably say that it's true. But like I said before, the show only having 8 episodes and then many of these themes feeling rushed makes me believe that this is just a pacing issue. And while I think it's unfortunate for its first season, it's not anything that can't be fixed, especially with a season 2 on the way. But with all that being said, I think Hazbin Hotel is a really fun project for you to check out. I personally really enjoyed the animation as well as the character designs, and the plot is something new that I don't think I've seen any other other animated show try. So you should definitely give it a watch if you have the time. And also if you have the time, please like the video as it helps the channel out, pushing the content out towards more people. Also subscribe and hit the noti bell if you want to keep up with the channel, as I'm going to be making a lot more animated and anime content. And also follow me on TikTok and Instagram if you want to keep up with me and what I'm watching, as I talk about everything from anime like Jujutsu Kaisen to animated shows like, yes, Hazbin Hotel. But until then, it's been your boy CornXV, and I'm off this.
Up in this tank, yeah, it's over. Turn on buzz mask up like coke. Pull up in Rovers, it's over. Bitch, I'm cheese Sosa, this coke. Llama, it can't want no hoes. Bottle, it can't let me pour. High as fun, just like a float. Wanna glow up, let me show you. V long thugs. I don't need no her.